What's going on, YouTube? Eric Bauer back again with another one of my super irregular videos. I'm still here, still part of the VC. Regardless of what length of a hiatus I might take, I'm always going to come back. Fact of the matter is, right now I'm mostly focused on the podcast, but I still have fun doing this shit, and I'm still going to upload videos here and there. Not every week, maybe not even every month, as is evidence with this video. I think the last one was up last January, back in January. First week, second week maybe, I don't know. Anyway, what I do know is in the background, we're listening to that beast right there. Behind Enemy Lines, the Global Cannibal. Fucking phenomenal band from Pennsylvania. Basically, what remained of the band Ausrotten going into the 2000s. And these guys fucking hated George W. Bush, as, you know, any rational person probably should, especially at that point in time. And all three of the records released under the name Behind Enemy Lines just fucking slay. Incredible, savage, enraged US hardcore. This shit borders on like thrash at points. It's so good. Longtime grail of mine. Finally found a copy. Got it back early January, I want to say, and super stoked to have it. It completes the basically the Ausrotten Behind Enemy Lines collection at this point. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that in too much depth beyond what we've just gone into. I'm going to talk about just some records, shit that I've been spinning, some shit that's kind of new to the collection, and just kind of what I've been digging since we last met. So we're going to start. Whoa. I always said I'd never burp on camera, and I just did it. Turn that down just a little bit. Speakers behind me, it's hard to hear. So the first thing I'm going to start with is not new. I've had this for a while, but it kind of started a whole thing with me recently. That is this compilation by Reeks, French boy band. These guys kind of blew up a few years back. This compilation collects everything they released between 2015 and 2017. Something like 3 or 4 7-inches. Really nice blue vinyl on La Vida SN Moose Discos, which is a fantastic label. They do all the like Disclose reissues. Una Bestia Incontrovertible, which is a fucking great band who I'm gonna look for a reason to talk about in detail, either here or on the podcast, but that's beside the point. It's got nothing to do with Reeks. This is an Oi band, so they're playing like traditional Oi style shit, pressed type music, anti-pasty, a little bit rougher edge, and a great record just all around. Like everything they've released is just excellent. Boots and braces type shit. Little bit more politically minded, though it's mostly just street punk, but from France, and really kind of like the headliners of this current movement of Oi coming out of France, Catalonia, Germany, other areas of Spain, and the UK. And I was at my local record shop, well, one of them. Singles Going Steady. It's one of the longest lived brick and mortar stores here in the Seattle area. The dude that runs it has been there for fucking ever. And we were just chit-chatting. I was talking to him about Oi music, because I never really got into Oi back in the day. I was always mostly just like a hardcore dude and a Crust dude and a fucking anarcho-punk dude back in the day, and then thrash metal and death metal. early black metal and all that shit kind of came into my scope. Oi never really crossed paths, and a lot of that was because back then, in like the late 80s, early 90s, there was a very conservative, right-wing focus mindset with most of the Oi music that was coming out. Now, you could call yourself a skin and say you were sharp if you wanted to be a little bit more on the liberal edge from most of your working class skins at the time. But the music was always a little bit more or less unapproachable, or approachable, not less unapproachable, less approachable, I guess, from the perspective that I had, the mentality that I was kind of running with. I was used to the guys, the white power skins that fucking, you know, start shit at shows with the rest of the culture. And it's a widespread culture. So anyway, long story short, we were talking about Oi, specifically French Oi. And he mentioned a band that I had never heard of, which is this one right here. Camera Silence. And this is their not their one and only album, but it's one of their more popular albums. Jesus, I can't read French. Realite. This came out originally in, let's see if I can determine that based off of what's on the back. The 80s. Originally in the 80s. See if I can glean it. I should have written more shit down, but I kind of just decided to do this spur of the moment. Reissue came out in 2012. The material recorded on here, it doesn't say. But you know what? It's not important. It's old. This band has a lot of history, specifically as of the last few years. Kind of notoriously a band made up of drug addicts. And at one point, they decided to call the band, to just basically stop the band, and they were going to do that after robbing a bank. And so they robbed a bank, or was it an armored car? It was a bank or an armored car. They robbed something of high security, and then they disappeared. And through the years, many of them died. Well, I think a few of them died. As far as I know, the only surviving member resurfaced within the last 5 years or so. He completely changed his identity, started a family, had pretty much outrun his past, but he's old and not in the greatest of health. So he finally came forward to the French authorities. I want to say the bank where the armored car robbery was in Paris. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows this shit. And his story so compelled the judge that they dropped all of the charges. And I think he'd outrun the statute of limitations anyway in France. But just an interesting story. He told me about that, and he didn't have anything by the band at the time, so I went home and checked it out. And I actually stumbled across this at another local record shop. Wrong fucking record. See how together I am? How gathered my thoughts are? Oh, don't cough in your hand like I just did. Go like this, especially right now. This record, I came across at another local shop, and it was cheap, man. It was like $10, $5-10. At any rate, it kind of got me on this whole kick. So then I ended up picking up this. Contingent. This is another French Oi band. Now, this material was originally recorded in 1981. This reissue is from 2014. And it's fucking great. Really confrontational, in your face Oi. As you would expect from 1981. band photos from the day. Oh, this fucking track right here gets me every time. Behind enemy lines. Fucking love it. Lyrics. One of the cool things is that the lyrics gives you the French lyrics as well as the English translation for the lyrics, and they're great. It's just anti-racist oi music in the vein of the oppressed, oi polloi, but of course earlier than that shit. And fantastic, just a really great picture in time of the French oi scene. Fantastic record, and I kind of blind bought this, if I'm honest, just based off of the cover, the original release year, and the band photos on the inside. It sold me, and not sorry about it. Now, a little bit more recent than that would be this collection that actually came out recently on Beach Impediment. Talking about Condor. Condor is made up of members of Reeks, who we just talked about. This is their singles between 2017 and 2018 on a 12-inch record. And this is another one that's just fucking phenomenal. And it's a great release. Comes with a really nice fold out. Huge. I'd like to put this up at some point, maybe. I really like this band. Just super raw, gritty, oi. Same vein as Reeks. Probably a little bit more sing-along. Just black vinyl. Really like the inners though. Just a great fucking LP. Really looking forward to hearing more stuff by these guys. If Reeks is calling it a day and continuing with this project, I have no complaints, because this is as good as that Reeks material, in my opinion. Just fantastic. That's Condor. Also, just love this fucking cover art. So good. Reminds me of Crumb. Or yeah, Bakshi, something like that. It's also in that vein, but not from France, unlike the rest of the stuff that we've just looked at. It's another cheap find. Hammer and the Nails with their maxi EP. Dig the cover artwork, it's fucking good. Released by Rock and Roll Disgrace, so you know it's gonna be in that pedigree. Hammer and the Nails are a Boston band, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure they've got members involved in Battle Ruins as well as the Revilers. I could be wrong about that. Real basic labels. But fucking great stuff. This is just brutal, knuckle dragging US oi. It's awesome. If you like Battle Ruins, you'll like this. It's Savage Beat, Death Ridge Boys. Fucking excellent. Alright, moving on. I've got a fair amount of stuff to show, to talk about. Here's a collection that I actually spoke about on the most recent podcast. That's Naftia from Greece. Pretty sure that's the, at least sort of close to the proper pronunciation for the name. And this is a double LP. Well, it's a single LP, but it's 2 albums on one. It is their, that record, as well as their Naftia Kinky Horror Show, plus a 7-inch single. I'm going to flip this record because it's over. We might end up talking longer than the record allows, so we'll see. That's one of the nice things about shooting from here is I've got access to the turntable now. Oh, yeah. Red vinyl. Gotta love it. Cats are crying and running around like crazy. So if they make an appearance, you've been warned. Anyway, about this band, Greek and Arco Crust. Just fantastic. Awesome reissue. I had this LP back in the 90s. I found it for not very much money. I want to say it came out originally in 92. And it sounds a lot like Doom, MG15. You'll hear stuff calling back to like Discard, that type of shit. Just a fucking great collection of tunes. This was released last year, reissued last year by Greek label Labyrinth of Thoughts. It's real basic labels. This didn't pop up in US distros anywhere. Sorry State didn't have them. Great Mistake didn't have them. So I ordered it directly from the label in Greece, and man, they shipped it out and this got to me super fast. I was impressed. Shipping was cheap, on par with shipping from German labels. Excellent. There's a 45 that's included. The packaging on this is just fucking phenomenal. And I know I'm committing the cardinal sin of putting away my fucking vinyl while I'm shooting the video, but whatever. Comes with this really nice book, which has just a ton of like liner notes, flyers, all in Greek. So if you can read Greek, you're probably in for a pretty good read. I can't read Greek, so it's a little unfortunate. At any rate, a fantastic package. Excellent reissue. Probably one of the best reissues that I snagged from 2019. And mandatory if you're into this type of music, this type of crust. It's just fucking excellent. Metallic. Like I said, if you like that Doom shit, like especially the stuff that they put out after the full length on Peaceville, it's awesome. Anyway, we're moving on. Next record comes from a band that is no more, but they became a band that put a record out last year that was fucking great called Frenzy, and that's Nervouskade. Just fucking, I love that artwork. This was released by Blackwater out of Portland. This is a limited version, 149 of 187. Came on a very, very appropriate, like aquamarine. Is that aquamarine? What does Riff Raff call that color? It's like shark something. Lyrics. And as far as what you get with this fucking album, it is just raw, furious US hardcore. Some of it's D-beat driven, other parts almost as breakneck as like power violence, always exasperating. The vocalist sounds like he's just on the verge of collapsing, basically the entire time. Just a savage trip from start to finish. This record smokes. More people should talk about this band. Unfortunately, they don't really get their due. which kind of sucks. So we're going to talk about some tapes. Tank, Armorplated. This is a compilation basically consisting of the best of the first 3 Tank albums, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's the first 2. I think it's the first 3 though. It's real basic. Came out on Raw Power. Is that right? Yeah. Raw Power Records. And it fucking rules. It's Tank. Motorhead-ish. If you're into like that realm of new wave of British heavy metal, that companies like Motorhead, fucking Raven, the early Raven stuff, Avenger or Warfare or Venom, Tank is for you if you haven't heard Tank. It's funny, Algie Ward basically formed Tank with 79 or 80 after he left the Damned. The Damned album that he performed on, Machine Gun Etiquette, is probably one of my favorite punk albums ever. I don't have a copy of it yet, but I'm looking for an OG, and I think I found one. At any rate, now when I listen to Machine Gun Etiquette, after diving back into Tank for so long, all I hear is what Tank would sound like from a lot of the music that Algie contributed to on that Damned record. It's pretty cool. Anyway, moving on from there, we've got a recent snag. Scorpions, Virgin Killer. And what can I say about Virgin Killer? A lot of people cite In Trance as being their preferred album between that one and this one. I think Virgin Killer is the stronger of the two. I love In Trance nonetheless. Still need it on tape. I actually stumbled across this at an antique mall, of all places, and just fantastic. I fucking love Scorpions up through Blackout. Even Love It for Sting has some fucking ragers on it, and this album smokes. Between this and the follow-up, Taken by Force, it's hard to pick a favorite. Here's a boot. What would it be without a bootleg? What would a video be without a bootleg? Oz, Fire in the Brain. Yes, that is Porthon's hand holding the flaming skull. I actually liked the treatment on this. They did a fairly good job for it being a pretty low budget affair. Nothing on the J card, so I'm not going to pull that out, but I talked about this on the podcast also. Fucking Oz rules. Fire in the Brain is a phenomenal record. I don't care much for the album before it, and I don't care much for anything they put out after it, but everything on here is fucking fantastic. Super underrated. Here's another underrated record. Motorhead. Rock and roll. And I'll tell you, I've been listening to a lot of Motorhead between Another Perfect Day, Rock and Roll, and Sacrifice, and 1916. And I would say that as good as Overkill is, as good as Bomber is, as good as any of the 70s Motorhead is, those are probably my 4 favorite Motorhead albums. A lot of it's out of nostalgia. 1916 was the first Motorhead record that I ever heard. And then, you know, I've talked about Sacrifice, I want to say, if not on this channel, then on the podcast. Rock and Roll, fantastic record. I like this better than Orgasmatron. Maybe it's the production, the instrumentation to a certain degree, but it's fucking great, man. And I just love that picture of the War Pigs. Is fucking awesome. We got another bootleg. Another actually pretty nice bootleg. It's Virtue with We Stand to Fight. I've never talked about Virtue before. New wave of British heavy metal. Farley's talked about him a little bit. I like the label. Pretty nice, actually. And the insert itself is actually not too bad. Got a band photo with the track listing. Basically copped right off of the No Remorse repress that came out a couple years back that's now is almost restrictively unaffordable as an original press of this material. This is probably an all-time new wave of British heavy metal classic. The EPs this band put out are phenomenal. We Stand to Fight and High Treason are especially high points on this. Just fucking great, great stuff. You can find this on any format, whether it's a bootleg or legit. If you can't find a legit copy, but you can find a bootleg, get the fucking bootleg. This stuff is mandatory if you're into that new wave of British heavy metal shit. That was, what's that? What is that? This one, I bought mostly out of nostalgia. I got it at the same time as that Scorpions. ZZ Top Duelo. And this was released originally in 1979 by Warner Brothers. First LP I ever bought was a copy of Duelo. Second LP I ever bought was a copy of Afterburner or Eliminator. Maybe it was Eliminator. Whatever the earlier of those two is. I liked ZZ Top a whole lot when I was younger. Tres Hombres was another early vinyl purchase. This is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, ZZ Top albums. And it holds up really well. And before you put it in the comments, have I watched the documentary? I haven't. I'd like to at some point, but I have not gotten around to it yet. Also, love the cover art. This was cheap, so that's one of the reasons I grabbed it. I still want to give it on wax because that fucking cover art rules. And the nostalgia factor. ZZ Top. Can't go wrong. At least not with that album. This is kind of recent. I came across this at a fairly new record shop here in the Seattle area called Hex Induction. And this was cheap as fuck. I couldn't believe it. I've been on the lookout for a reasonably priced version of this record for some time now. And I've already mentioned their name today. That's Raven. The fucking Rockin' Till You Drop. Their debut. And it's been partied on a little bit, this copy, as far as the sleeve goes. Record itself, basically mint. With the neat labels. And it's, I don't know what to say about Raven, man. Like, this record just smokes. It's so good. It's earlier than thrash, but you can tell that that's kind of the direction they would have gone if they hadn't decided to try and go commercial. And this has just some fantastic tracks on here. Some of my favorites. Hard Ride, fantastic. Hell Patrol's just scathing. The title track, Rockin' Till You Drop. Nobody's Hero. Hellraiser, the cover from the Suite, along with Action. What a great couple of covers, let me tell you. I'm not huge on big like covers unless they're done super well. And I talk a little bit about that on the podcast, but their renditions of Hellraiser and Action, fantastic. For me though, the song that takes it is For the Future, man. That song's just choice. So good. Fantastic. Mandatory. New wave of British heavy metal. One of my favorites. And I'm going to be talking probably at more length about this on an upcoming podcast. Just to drop that there as well. And then the last thing I've got to show. Some more new wave of British heavy metal. And it's a collection on No Remorse. It's Holocaust with Heavy Metal Mania, the singles. That's that cover, first of all, rules. It's just a blown up rendition of the EP itself. And like the title suggests, this is a collection of 45s by Holocaust. So you're going to be absent a lot of the Nightcomers material. which is kind of a shame, but honestly, I always, when it comes to the Holocaust specifically, especially Heavy Metal Mania, I far prefer the 45 version than I do for the version that's on the Nightcomers. It just has that extra oomph to the production. It's so good. This band, I shouldn't really need to say a lot about. They're up there with like Blitzkrieg and Diamond Head as far as new wave of British heavy metal notoriety. And it's another one like that Virtue that's basically mandatory. If you have any interest in this genre of metal, classic metal, then you'd be doing yourself a disservice to not check this out if you're not already familiar with it. And now that that's sleeved and the record's over, I'm done. Peace out, folks. Till next time. Keep it real.